Bees are iconic. Bees have appeared in poems and songs over hundreds of years of human history. They are found in ancient cave paintings, are represented in Egyptian hieroglyphs, and are described in Mayan scrolls. In modern times, bees appear as a symbol of many products and services. We even tend to associate stripes of yellow and black with bees. Many species of bees have played a part in agriculture and human development for thousands of years, and yet some aspects of their natural history are still a mystery. The life cycle of all bees includes 4 stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Much like butterflies, the immature stages of bees looks very different from the adult. Butterfly caterpillars, such as this young monarch, can be spotted walking about in gardens and eating their preferred plants. In contrast, the immature bees are nowhere to be found. This is because the larvae of bees are kept hidden, living inside nests constructed by their mothers and their sisters. Bee larvae don't have legs. They cannot walk in search of food as caterpillars do. They must wait in the nest to be fed, and it is inside their nest where bees will develop and complete their metamorphosis into adults. All bee larvae consume food that is derived exclusively from plants. Flowers are indispensable to the bee's life cycle because they produce pollen and nectar, which is used by the adults to raise more bees. Adult bees forage to collect food for the young larvae, and their visits to the flowers results in pollination and the production of fruit and seeds. Bees play a critical role in the conservation of natural forests, especially in tropical regions where about 90% of flowering plants depend on animals for pollination. We tend to rely on a few species of bees for agriculture. These honeybees are busy gathering food for their young, and at the same time are providing a service to the owners of these community gardens. Most bees have long branched hairs all over their bodies that function much like miniature mops. Upon contact with the male parts of the flowers, dust-like pollen grains become stuck to the tiny hairs. To plants, pollen grains are precious little packages containing their genetic information, but to bees, pollen is lunch. The bees then brush themselves and use specialized structures on their bodies to pack pollen grains tightly so they can fly home with the food they collected. To have the right nutrition, bees must have diverse pollen sources. Poorly fed bees are weak and have a hard time fighting disease and parasite infection. In social bees, attaining pollen diversity is a team effort. Each worker packs the pollen they brought into a cell, and over time, layers and layers are created, representing many bees and many pollen sources are stored into the cells, and the colony as a whole has a diverse collection of pollen types. In some species of bees, such as the wool carder bee, it can take up to 1,000 flower visits for a female to gather enough pollen to feed a single larva. Numerous trips to and from flowers require refueling stations. Luckily for bees, most flowers also offer nectar. This sugary solution provides a quick energy boost to the adult bees, and they can also carry the nectar back to the nest in a special sac inside their bodies, called the crop. Nectar also plays an important role in the bee's life cycle. The nectar produced by plants as a reward for pollinators is a mixture of 3 types of sugar. It is a vital source of energy for adult bees, and in some social species it can be stored inside the hive in the form of honey. Stingless bees and bumblebees build pots to store honey. Honeybees, in contrast, use their honeycomb as a reusable storage space for nectar, pollen, and baby bees. Nectar and honey are not fed directly to developing bees. These sweets are instead combined with pollen in a mixture called bee bread. Nurse bees will then consume bee bread and transform it into larval food. The food produced by nurse bees will help the honeybee larva store large amounts of fat in their bodies. Healthy older larvae are very white and chubby, almost spilling out of their cells. It is the energy from the fat in their bodies that allows them to complete the changes from larva to adult bee. The large majority of bees are solitary, and each female provides for her own young. They vary greatly in size and habits, and in their search for flowers, they create complex pollinator webs that we are just beginning to understand. One large difference between the life cycle of the worker honeybee and that of the solitary bees is the care they receive from the adult. A solitary female must gather all the food a single larva will need before they can begin to rear another. She has to prepare a cell, gather all the food a larva will need, and then lay an egg into the cell and seal it. The mother will not revisit that cell, and the adult bee will hatch independently, begin to feed, and mate. There are even a few rare species of bees that prefer to take advantage of the labor of other species. Parasitic bees, such as this tiny yellow-faced bee, found in the volcanic forests of Hawaii, use the provisions of other bees to feed their own larva nests. This rare parasitic bee will search for the nests of other species and lay her eggs in them. The intruder's larva will then consume the food collected by the unsuspecting mother bee. Of the estimated 20,000 species of bees described by scientists, only about 5% are social. Some social bees, such as bumblebees and honeybees, are easily recognized by most people. Others, like these tiny stingless bees, are abundant only in the tropics and don't look much like their fuzzy counterparts. All the advanced social species of bees have well-constructed societies with distinct castes where related individuals perform certain specialized jobs. These tiny stingless bees guard the tube-like entrance to their nest. Although they cannot sting, bees in this family will bite intruders and use tree resins to immobilize them. Reproduction is restricted to a few individuals called queens. A queen's only job is to lay eggs while her daughters gather food and care for the young. The queen will lay upwards of 1,000 eggs per day. The eggs hatch inside the wax cells of the honeycomb. These wax cells are recycled cradles. Each cell may hold many generations of bees, and at some point, they may have stored honey or bee bread. Wax, which is produced by the worker bees themselves, is a brilliant way to store babies and food. Wax, however, is also capable of retaining many chemical residues, including pesticides, and with the increase in pesticides use in urban and agricultural environments, the cradles can be coated in poison. Aside from pesticides, the fate of these small but important insects is threatened by many factors: decreasing floral diversity, fragmentation of the natural habitat, bird and mammal predators, but most importantly perhaps by new parasites that carry viruses and many types of larval diseases. Understanding the bee's life cycle is the first step in the protection of these vital insects. The stability of the pollination web and the successful pollination of many plants depends greatly on how much we know about the ecology of the bees and the choices we make about our environment.